So she's
I mean,
a
they
serial
sound reasonable.
fraudster. That's called fraud. She's a Me Too victim there. That's absurd.
Blake Lively is having a full-scale meltdown after Megyn Kelly exposed her dirty past in the most brutal way possible.
That she and her husband are bullies.
Turns out, Blake has spent years bulldozing people, humiliating them on live TV, and acting like Hollywood's untouchable queen. But now that Megyn has fearlessly stepped in and dragged her mess into the spotlight, the empire of manipulation is finally crumbling.
She seems like kind of a jerk. Wow, she's like kind of a bully. She's rather mean.
Blake Lively has spent years convincing the world she's Hollywood's golden girl. Flawless, graceful, effortlessly likable. But turns out, that polished PR image is nothing more than a well-rehearsed performance. And Megyn Kelly just hit rewind on the whole act.
She claims he sexual harassed her, and then by the time they premiered the movie, they weren't even speaking to each other. She made him stay in the basement, and Ryan Reynolds turned on him too. And then she claimed that he unleashed a bad PR campaign against her.
Because before Blake was hijacking It Ends With Us and going full dictator mode on Justin Baldoni, she was already setting the stage for her own personal power trip.
She wrested his movie away from him and decided to try to hurt him with petty, made-up, out-of-context complaints when he pushed back even in the mildest way.
Back in her Gossip Girl days, Blake wasn't just acting. She was strategically maneuvering her way into the right circles like a chess grandmaster.
A 2009 Glamour UK interview by Blake Lively. She was on the cover at the time, and in her interview, she admitted to trying to poison the cast of Gossip Girl, which is where she made her name.
In a 2009 interview, she casually admitted to poisoning the Gossip Girl cast against Penn Badgley just because she didn't like him at first. Not ignoring him, not keeping it professional. Actively turning the entire cast against him like some high school mean girl with a Hollywood budget.
Against her co-star, Penn Badgley, who played her love interest, Dan Humphrey, on the show. She said, "At first I was so upset that they had hired him, I actually poisoned the whole cast against him."
And the kicker? She later admitted he was actually a nice guy, meaning the whole smear campaign was just Blake flexing her power for no reason other than to make herself the main character.
And she goes on to say, but then they noticed that he wasn't a jerk and was actually a nice, charming person, and almost immediately I realized it too. But it took me about a week to admit it.
That wasn't a one-time thing either. Blake mastered the art of keeping her hands clean while other people got pushed out of the picture. She knew how to charm the media, maintain that squeaky clean image, and make sure no one ever saw the strings she was pulling behind the scenes. But now that she's in the middle of a Hollywood courtroom circus, there's one thing she didn't plan for. Nobody's coming to her rescue.
Reports were that Blake Lively and Leighton Meester, who played best friends on that show, were not friends during the 6-season run of the show. Leighton Meester and Penn Badgley and other Gossip Girl co-stars have remained silent in the wake of the Baldoni legal drama.
Not a single Gossip Girl co-star has stepped up to defend her. Leighton Meester, silent. Penn Badgley, radio silence. The rest of the cast, acting like she doesn't exist. These were people who worked with her for 6 years, and if anyone wanted to vouch for her character, now would be the time. But the silence is deafening, and it says way more than words ever could.
Neither Meester nor Badgley follow Lively on Instagram.
Blake's falling out with Leighton Meester is another piece of the puzzle. On screen, Serena and Blair were the ultimate best friend duo, but behind the cameras, it was a total disaster. Blake, always obsessed with staying in the spotlight, reportedly got frustrated that Leighton was more focused on acting than chasing celebrity status.
It's like, all I do is buy soccer teams that win, sell tequila that people like, or vodka, or whatever it is, and he's like generally stayed above, and now all of a sudden he is in the dirt with this.
By the time the show ended, they weren't even speaking. And now that Blake's legal drama is front-page news, Leighton isn't lifting a finger to defend her. Almost like karma's finally cashing in. And this is exactly what Megyn Kelly exposed. Blake's entire career is a cycle of manipulation, alliances, and playing the victim the moment things don't go her way.
Blake Lively is caught in old footage revealing that yes, her secret plan is to always take control of the movies and lie to the directors.
Whether it was Penn Badgley, Leighton Meester, or now Justin Baldoni, the pattern is always the same. Blake takes control, rewrites the story in her favor, and when the narrative slips out of her hands, she suddenly becomes the misunderstood victim.
Yeah, like Forbes Power Women, and she's so confident. Exactly, I think that's so telling how confident she is to just say, I have no qualms lying to the director, taking control of their movie, pulling the rug from them, like, oh my God!
In 2022, Blake Lively stood on stage at the Forbes Power Women's Summit, flashing that effortless charm, delivering what was supposed to be an empowering speech. But instead, she accidentally exposed her own playbook for industry manipulation. This wasn't just an inspiring talk about ambition and success. It was a full-blown confession of exactly what Justin Baldoni is dragging her to court over.
What is happening here? I would show up on a set. I knew that they just wanted me to show up and look cute and stand on a little pink sticker where I'm supposed to go and say what I'm supposed to say, but I also knew that that wasn't fulfilling for me.
At the time, nobody paid much attention, but now, with her entire career under a magnifying glass, that resurfaced clip is coming back to bite her in the most spectacular way possible.
That I wanted to be a part of the storytelling, that I wanted to be a part of the narrative, whether that be in the writing, in the costume design, in creating the character. And sometimes I had directors or producers or writers who would welcome that and invite that once they saw that I was able to offer that. And sometimes I would have people who really resented that because they were like, we just hired you to be an actor.
With a crowd hanging onto her every word, Blake casually admitted that she faked her way into roles by pretending to be exactly what directors wanted. Just another eager actress thrilled to be part of the project. But once she secured the role, that's when the real takeover began. She started injecting her creative input, rewriting scripts, making executive decisions that weren't hers to make, and slowly edging out the actual decision makers.
So I think that for them, sometimes that might have felt like a rug pull because you're like, you're trying to assert yourself into something that we didn't hire you to do.
She even laughed about how some directors felt betrayed when they realized what she was doing, as if hijacking projects was some kind of genius power move instead of straight-up deception. This wasn't a slip of the tongue. It wasn't an exaggeration. It was Blake Lively, on record, laying out her entire strategy of career domination. And now, just 2 years later, Justin Baldoni is taking her to court for doing exactly what she bragged about on that stage.
Because I felt like I don't want to just be an actor. I want to, I want to have more authorship.
His lawsuit accuses Blake of pretending to be just an actress in It Ends With Us, only to push him out of his own movie, override his creative vision, and take control. And here's the kicker. Baldoni's production company financed the film, secured the rights from Colleen Hoover, and spent years developing it. But the second Blake got involved, she did exactly what she admitted to in 2022. She hijacked the whole thing.
Because I don't think she even realizes what she's admitting. Sometimes they'd let me and sometimes they wouldn't. And then she goes further and says, I would just lie to them in the audition process and make them think I'm just an actress to do what they want.
This isn't some isolated incident. This is a pattern. Blake has been perfecting this slow burn takeover strategy for years, starting with small creative suggestions before steamrolling the entire production.
Well, yeah, that's because that's what you did. You knowingly admitted that's what you do. They want an actress, they hire an actress, they pay you to be an actress, that's your job. But then you do exactly what Justin's accusing you of.
And for the most part, it worked. The directors who resisted were either ignored, outmaneuvered, or quietly pushed aside. She knew exactly how to work the system, get cast, gain trust, make herself indispensable, and then take control. It was a step-by-step formula that had never failed her.
And imagine if Justin had just known this, if this clip had gone viral before to avoid this whole mess. I'm just the entitlement of her that she thinks this is okay and proudly displaying as we're women so we can just lie and cheat and steal our way into control these big movies.
Until Justin Baldoni. Unlike the big-name directors she had manipulated in the past, Justin wasn't an A-list powerhouse with studio backing. He wasn't a Christopher Nolan or a Denis Villeneuve. He was a rising director, still proving himself, without the industry clout to fight back. And Blake saw an opportunity.
And what it sounds like is that she's not interested in being a part of a team. She just wants to own it all. And that's fine. If that is your method of working, then do that. But you have to create your own projects. You have to put yourself in that position that you are in charge, not take it from somebody else.
She played nice at first, acted like she was just another team player. But before long, she was rewriting scripts, making executive decisions, and treating the film like it was hers. Slowly but surely, Baldoni was being pushed to the sidelines until he was no longer just a director. He was an afterthought.
And it's not enough. You don't even get to come to the premiere. You're not allowed in the premiere. Fine, but he goes in the basement when I show up. I mean, that's not authorship. That's not autonomy. That's control. That's selfishness. That's entitlement. This woman is a monster.
By the time It Ends With Us premiered, Blake had completely erased Baldoni from the picture. The man who fought to bring the film to life wasn't even allowed to attend his own premiere. While Blake soaked up the spotlight, Baldoni was literally forced to stay in the basement, the ultimate final power move to show the world who really ran the show.
Sorry, you admit to lying, which is clearly what as you watch the text, she's always asking permission. She's guilt-tripping Justin. Oh, directors don't let me, and blah, 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 blah. And then he's always like, oh my God, I'm so sorry, yeah.
But here's the problem. Blake got cocky. The exact words she smugly spoke in 2022 are now evidence against her. What she once flaunted as an example of her influence is now proof of her industry-wide manipulation. And as more people connect the dots, it's becoming painfully clear. Blake Lively didn't just take over It Ends With Us. She's been running this con for years.
The thing is, what I've learned in Hollywood is that people never apologize, which for me would be the most natural thing to do, you know? You do something, you say something, and then you own up to it. And the best thing and the most rewarding thing in the world is to actually apologize to someone.
In 2019, Justin Baldoni secured the film rights to Colleen Hoover's best-selling novel, It Ends With Us, a project he had been deeply passionate about for years. His production company, Wayfarer Studios, optioned the rights, and by early 2022, development was in full swing. As both producer and director, Baldoni had a clear vision, a film that would capture the novel's raw emotional depth and bring important conversations about domestic violence to the screen. But what started as his passion project quickly spiraled into something unrecognizable.
She took control. That's why A-list producers brought in. That's when suddenly, oh crap, this movie's not just we need more time. This movie could actually be something. All because of Justin.
In April 2023, Blake Lively was announced as the lead, set to play Lily Bloom. On paper, it looked like a win. An A-list actress attached to a beloved book with a dedicated fan base. But behind the scenes, Blake wasn't just signing on as an actress, she was making her move to seize control.
I fully believe she saw Mark and she was stepping over him and knew he was easily manipulative. She would have full control of this movie. And I further believe, as in post, because of Justin's cut and a lot of stuff that happened, she realized they had a hit on their hands.
Production sources claim that almost immediately after being cast, Blake began demanding changes to the script. Not small tweaks, not minor adjustments. Full-scale rewrites that were neither approved by Baldoni nor the original creative team. She allegedly argued that certain scenes needed to be altered to fit her vision of Lily. But over time, it became clear that this wasn't about collaboration. It was about control.
So she's a serial fraudster. That's called fraud. When you pretend you want to do the one thing and you'll do the thing they're hiring you for, but all along you have secret plans to do something very, very different that's above your pay grade.
By mid-2023, Blake's influence had expanded beyond just the script. Insiders reported that she began overriding directorial decisions, leaving Baldoni blindsided. He had signed on to work with her as an actor, but instead, he found himself being pushed out of key creative discussions. Her power move didn't stop there. Blake allegedly leveraged her industry connections to bring in a new team of editors and producers who would align with her version of the film, leaving Baldoni further sidelined in his own project.
And she finally bumped into someone who was weak enough and not famous enough to stop her, right? This Justin Baldoni, most people had never even heard of him.
By late 2023, she was demanding final cut approval, a privilege that traditionally belongs to either the director or the studio. Baldoni, despite being the one who optioned the rights, financed the project, and built the film from the ground up, was rapidly losing his grip. Even studio executives were reportedly caught off guard by just how much influence Blake had managed to secure behind the scenes.
And she bullied him into giving her the movie where she did her own cut. They released the cut of the movie. He didn't even get to see it. He was the director of the film, the producer of the film, the guy who got the rights to the film, the one who's supposed to be in control. He didn't even get to see it. He was in the basement at his own movie premiere.
By the time filming wrapped in early 2024, it was no longer Justin Baldoni's film. Blake Lively had completely taken over It Ends With Us. According to insiders, Baldoni's version of the movie was tested and scored better with audiences, but Blake refused to back down. She insisted on releasing her version instead, making it clear that this wasn't just about having input. It was about erasing Baldoni's vision entirely.
And then she had the nerve, because she had 2 minutes of bad publicity when the film hit, to come out and try to blame it all on him.
And then came the ultimate humiliation. In May 2024, the New York City premiere of It Ends With Us was held, a highly anticipated event meant to celebrate the film's release. But when Justin Baldoni arrived, he wasn't even allowed on the main floor.
It's like if you hire the plumber and he climbs out from under the sink and says, "Now let's talk about how you've decorated the place." It's like, what are you talking about, man? I gave you a job.
How dare they hire an actor to act?
Multiple reports confirmed that he was forced to stay in the basement. This was a man who had spent 5 years developing this film, securing the rights and directing it, reduced to a footnote in his own project.
Well, yes. I mean, maybe someday you could be a producer or a screenwriter, but no one contracted with you to do that here. And that's another allegation, Holmes, is that she started to rewrite scenes that nobody had asked her to rewrite.
Sources from the premiere stated that Blake refused to acknowledge Baldoni at all, making it painfully obvious that this was her night, her film, and her moment to shine. Witnesses claimed that Baldoni looked visibly uncomfortable, knowing full well that the man who should have been front and center was being kept out of sight.
She is accused of having turned the whole cast of It Ends With Us against Justin. By the time they premiered the movie, Ryan Reynolds had unfollowed him on Insta, so had Blake, so had the rest of the cast.
But this wasn't just about the premiere itself. Blake's PR team made sure the press coverage was entirely focused on her. By the next morning, entertainment news was flooded with headlines like, "Blake Lively stuns at It Ends With Us premiere," with barely a mention of Baldoni. Interviews were carefully curated to exclude any mention of his role, making it seem as if he had little to no involvement in the film's creation. The final blow wasn't just professional, it was personal. Within hours of the premiere, Ryan Reynolds unfollowed Justin Baldoni on Instagram, a move that sent a very clear message. Blake had made her choice, and Baldoni was officially cut off. This wasn't just a film dispute anymore. It was a complete severance of ties, both professionally and personally.
Blake Lively may have a history of not being upfront when she gets cast in a movie of her secret desires to actually play a much bigger role than that of lead actress.
For Hollywood insiders, this was the moment Blake's carefully curated image started to crack. What happened to Baldoni wasn't some innocent oversight. It was a calculated power move. And as more details emerge, it's becoming impossible to ignore just how far Blake Lively was willing to go to make sure this was her film, no matter who got crushed in the process.
You know, these are weak, feckless people out in Hollywood. They have no spine. So, of course, they all unfollowed him and chose Team Blake, including, by the way, Colleen Hoover, the one who really owed him a debt of gratitude because he bought the rights to her book.
Megyn Kelly has never been one to sugarcoat the truth. And when she obliterated Blake Lively's carefully curated image, it was nothing short of a Hollywood earthquake. In February 2025, during an explosive segment on The Megyn Kelly Show, she didn't just call out Blake's downfall. She made it crystal clear that this wasn't some media witch hunt. It was karma cashing in, years overdue.
I revealed something about a person. Celebrities are often put on pedestals, and if someone tries to tear that down, there's a lot of power and money behind these people.
For years, the 2016 press junket for Cafe Society had been buried. Nobody talked about it, nobody mentioned it. But in February 2025, the footage found its way online, and within hours, it spread like wildfire.
Here it is.
First of all, congrats on your little bump.
Congrats on your little bump.
What about my bump?
You've got two nice ones.
And they are kind of bumps, aren't they?
No, not bumps. The lovely lady lumps. Check it out.
It started like any other interview. Kirsty, a Swedish journalist, was doing her job, asking polite standard questions, even congratulating Blake on her pregnancy. Nothing out of the ordinary, but Blake's reaction, downright nasty.
Did you guys love wearing those kind of clothes that you...
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you know, working in
Everyone
digital.
wants to talk about the clothes, but I wonder if they would ask the men about the clothes.
I would.
I love Jesse's suits and how
that's what I'm saying. His wardrobe was beautiful.
I know,
Corey's
everybody.
wardrobe.
Instead of smiling and moving on like any normal person, Blake looked Kirsty up and down and coldly remarked that she had a baby bump too. The problem? Kirsty wasn't pregnant. She could never be pregnant. And later, she revealed that Blake's words weren't just a thoughtless mistake. They were a deliberate jab meant to humiliate her.
And she just immediately disrespects you, doesn't look you in the eyes, and just like 2 bad questions, I guess she thought in your mind. 2 strikes, you're out. I'm not going to give you the time of day.
And the footage made it clear. Blake wasn't joking. She wasn't being playful. She was mean. The dismissive tone, the smug expression, the refusal to make eye contact. It was all right there, captured on camera. And she wasn't alone. Co-star Parker Posey sat beside her, laughing along, feeding into the toxic high school bully energy. What should have been a professional, harmless interview turned into a public takedown, with Kirsty on the receiving end of Blake's sharp-edged cruelty.
I was just feeling, let this be over as soon as possible so I can just leave this room, because it was so uncomfortable. As you can see from my face when you watch it, I was just sitting there, and then it was kind of an out-of-body experience because I couldn't really grasp what was happening.
For years, Kirsty kept the footage private. She admitted that she never spoke out earlier because she feared retaliation. Blake Lively wasn't just a Hollywood actress. She was protected, powerful, and dangerously well-connected. Speaking against her could have easily blacklisted Kirsty from the industry.
Did you feel at any point like you were asking unfair questions? Did you catch in the moment like why are you asking about my baby bump? Ugh, leave me alone.
I didn't really ask her about her baby bump. I just congratulated her on it. And I think she was about 8 months pregnant at the time.
But now, with Blake's entire career under scrutiny, her manipulative past laid bare, and her long history of mistreating people finally exposed, Kirsty felt safe enough to share the truth. And when the footage hit the internet, it shredded whatever was left of Blake Lively's America's Sweetheart image. The second Blake Lively's Mean Girl clip went viral, her PR team went into full panic mode.
Blake Lively interview that made me want to quit my job. Now, Lewis is in the back, and we were talking about this. I've done junket interviews too. I have your back. What's so frustrating about this whole clip, which we're going to play a bit of, is just how disrespectful she is, and her forgetting that this is your job, and that her job is to promote a movie, and your job is there to try to make it nice and sell this movie.
Hollywood Damage Control 101. When bad press starts spreading, shift the narrative fast. And within 48 hours, that's exactly what happened. Suddenly, TMZ and People magazine were running stories about how Blake felt uncomfortable filming with Justin Baldoni. The headlines were carefully crafted. Baldoni had fat-shamed Blake during a critical on-set moment.
She immediately looked down and basically called you fat. It's like, nice baby bump to you as well, because I assume you weren't pregnant in that time, were you?
No.
The fat-shaming accusations seemed to come out of nowhere. Industry insiders quickly pointed out that Baldoni had a documented back injury during filming and had only asked about Blake's weight before a physically demanding scene, a standard practice in stunt coordination to ensure safety. But now, that routine conversation was being repackaged as an insult, a controversy, a scandal.
She's become known for that, so why do you think she was so offended that you were asking about the wardrobe?
To be honest with you, I don't know if she was offended. I think she was just she didn't want to be there, and she didn't want me to be there. And I think she was just being in a bad mood. And I don't know if me congratulating her on her pregnancy made her in such a horrible mood that she felt she had to punish me.
And that's where it all fell apart. Because Blake Lively, she was the last person who could pull the body-shaming victim card. The Kirsty interview scandal was still fresh in the public's mind. This was the same woman who, on camera, mocked a journalist's body in front of a full press room.
This eye roll. Oh,
yeah.
Good riddance. Look at her. It's so hard to watch. But these two were like two mean girls at the cafeteria table, making fun of the lady who walked in, and it was so hard to watch.
If she was so deeply offended by the idea of weight comments, why had she been so comfortable publicly humiliating someone else over theirs? The hypocrisy wasn't just obvious. It was impossible to ignore. And suddenly, people weren't just questioning Blake's accusations against Baldoni. They were questioning whether this entire scandal was nothing more than a smokescreen to distract from her own nasty behavior.
There's definitely a mean girl bullying vibe to this. You can't deny it. Maybe it was a bad day. Junkets are hard, but it's unfair to sort of use that as an excuse because it can be hard for the interviewer as well.
And then, just when things couldn't get messier, the leaked messages surfaced. The ones that dragged Ryan Reynolds and Taylor Swift straight into the chaos.
She's like, I need you to get on a Zoom with Taylor Swift, and we're ruining lives tonight.
Be very, very careful with your marriages, folks. This is the kind of
Little
thing that can
dragon.
Private messages from Blake's inner circle revealed that she had referred to Ryan and Taylor as her dragons, her personal enforcers, the ones she could count on to publicly back her up whenever she needed damage control. And Ryan? He played his part flawlessly.
By the time they premiered the movie, Ryan Reynolds had unfollowed him on Insta, so had Blake, so had the rest of the cast.
Within days of the controversy exploding, Ryan Reynolds unfollowed Justin Baldoni on Instagram. No public statements, no official stance, just a swift, strategic unfollow that made one thing clear. Blake had officially cut ties with Baldoni, and Ryan was falling in line. And in an industry where optics are everything, Ryan's silent allegiance spoke volumes. But Taylor Swift? That was a different story.
She's like, I need you to get on a Zoom with Taylor Swift, and we're ruining lives tonight.
Be very, very careful with your marriages, folks.
For years, Blake had paraded her friendship with Taylor like a VIP pass, attending private events, posting carefully curated photos, leveraging their connection to maintain her cool girl image. But now, as Blake's scandal spiraled out of control, Taylor quietly started pulling back.
I told them that I wasn't in the best place. I told them that I was exhausted, that I haven't given myself time to recover.
And not only Baldoni, but several reports surfaced that Taylor felt used in the feud, realizing that Blake had dragged her into a personal war she had nothing to do with. And for Taylor, who was already navigating a year of intense scrutiny over her own public image, aligning herself with Blake now was a PR risk she wasn't willing to take.
Here we go, Blake Lively facing another lawsuit in her ongoing, it ends with us, legal battle with co-star Justin Baldoni.
She didn't make a public statement. She didn't call out Blake. She didn't defend Justin. She simply stayed quiet. And in Hollywood, silence can be louder than words. While Blake scrambled to rewrite the media narrative, Justin Baldoni was preparing for the real fight in court. In early 2025, Baldoni's legal team, led by powerhouse defamation attorney Brian Friedman, filed a lawsuit against the New York Times. The accusation? Defamation.
This time from a publicist that she named in the complaint, she filed with the California Civil Rights Department. On Tuesday, 4th of February, Jed Wallace of the Texas-based crisis management firm.
Baldoni's team alleged that the newspaper had published one-sided, unverified claims supporting Blake, printing false accusations without evidence. But the real bombshell came when Baldoni's team presented actual text messages proving Blake's allegations were exaggerated or outright fabricated. These weren't vague accusations. These were hard receipts.
But now that she's done all this and now that the texts have come out, I really don't like this woman. I am so angered by her ability to think she could just take control and she knows better.
The lawsuit threw Hollywood into chaos, forcing the industry to finally ask the question: had Blake weaponized the media to destroy Baldoni's career? Had she used her deep industry connections to control the narrative, knowing she could rewrite history in her favor? Or was this all just an elaborate scheme to protect her takeover of "it ends with us" at any cost? But the real nail in the coffin wasn't the lawsuit. It wasn't the leaked texts. It was the quiet rebellion happening right under Blake's nose. At first, Colleen Hoover publicly supported Blake, standing by her when the drama first erupted. But then, in February 2025, something shifted.
Firstly, I suppose we should start with the fact that none of this has been tried in court. I believe the court date is set to be, like a year from now, like next March or something like that.
Fans noticed that Hoover had erased every mention of Blake from her social media. No posts, no tweets, no interviews. It was like she had never even been associated with her. The woman whose book Blake fought so hard to take control of had quietly scrubbed her from existence. And after this avalanche of evidence, nobody knows how Blake Lively is going to spin her way out of this one. But if you don't want to miss what happens next, hit that subscribe button and stay tuned.